champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
And here we are, guys. We are back with another edition of Belt Kings Radio Presents Champions, episode 5. I am your host, Mike Knoxxx, and indeed I spell my name with 3 X's because you can see that slammy back there. That means I am hardcore. And as always, I'm joined by my host. My kicks are my fix. I said it right.
I said it right.
Corey. How you doing, Corey?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm all right, man. I'm just here with what this country is being faced with right now. I just felt that it was good to know what. Put something out there still good. Like Issa Rae still showing Insecure on Sunday. I felt it was obligational. If that's a word. If it's not, I just made it up. My wife hates when I make up words. May don't do that. You sound stupid. Well, it's wrestling. Wrestling is stupid at times, right? So I felt that I had to come out and do a show to kind of ease our minds off of the tensions that America is faced with. So with that being said, this is not a political show. This is a show about wrestling belts and the belts that we love. And today's belt, Corey, is the WCW, not Women Crush Wednesday. I hate that.
No.
My wife is, Corey, you're laughing. My wife is getting, how come I never get a WCW? Because it stands for World Championship Wrestling. No, it don't. It stands for World Championship Wrestling. And as a wrestling fan, I can't give you a Woman Crush Wednesday. Okay?
Yeah, I remember when that hashtag first came out, and I'm like, there's no wrestling stuff with it. There's no wrestling stuff. And I realized what it was. Like, okay, I mean, I get it, but WCW will forever and always be World Championship Wrestling.
World Championship Wrestling is what it is. And the tag team titles go a long way because it took me, again, I say this every week and I mean it. The reason why I love this show and I'm hearing feedback from fans that love this show is the educational and the opening mind of being the intelligent wrestling fans that you look into when doing the history of said title that we are doing. And today we're going to do the WCW tag team titles. Now, that's not all of NWA, which I always still classify, but I always get messed up. I don't know where the line was split, because even when it was called WCW, as a fan I grew up with, I'm quite sure your uncle, Dr. D, Dr. D, still called it NWA. You know what I mean? Because
right. And what's funny about that is that it was literally the definition of gray area, because they were really WCW from 88 or 89.
Yep.
They were WCW.
Yeah.
But it was, they still treated it territorially in the sense that WCW was almost looked at as the main territory of the NWA, is what you could classify it as. So they were still using all of the NWA's championships. Yeah. It were still, and they were still, everything was still the NWA Tag Team Championship, Television Championship, U.S. Tag Championship, U.S. Championship, World Championship. Like, everything was still NWA, but the company was WCW. And it wasn't until, they split, as a lot of people know, in 91, they split, Flair left and took the world title, and they became WCW officially with no affiliation to the NWA. So that's kind of where we starting this show, in a sense that we're talking about the WCW Tag Team Championship, and specifically the design, because that's what this show is about, is the design of the belt. We're talking about the design that was used between 91 and 97, which before it switched to the 3-plate
smaller.
And what's funny is that they went from that version to a little bit of a larger version on the way, of being a company, but. We can touch on that real quick. I never really was a fan of those newer belts.
The ones that they had towards the later years of WCW. None of those belts actually set up for me. Not the ones that Natural Born Thrillers wore. Not their television title they made. The only thing that stayed consistent was Big Goldie. I mean,
the U.S. Championship. And the U.S. Championship,
Well, and we're talking about that belt in future shows too. That belt has changed over the years as well.
Yes, it has.
And just giving a snippet into that title whenever we talk about that title. My favorite champion of the U.S. title for me would be Lex Luger. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that would be a lot of people's. That would be a lot of people's. No, that you're fine. Look, we're about to get into a whole other show. We're going to talk about the tag titles.
So, speaking about these said tag titles, It's debuted in 91. And again, I always, I like to keep things honest and real. That's why my name is Mike Knoxxx with 3X. You're on the follows on Google and all them social media, wherever they are, as well as 1340 AM Fox Sports and this show. We can get to that particulars again later. That title is that I had a hard time finding out where the split actually went, because in 91, there was one set of titles. And then in 91, still, there was a second set of titles. And I bring it up to say, going into the show, Corey, I thought Doom or Harlem Heat, who was the greatest champions? And you said, well, Mike, I don't think Doom had those titles. We did our research.
They did.
Doom didn't have those titles, Corey.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because, once again, the gray area, they debuted those belts in 91. And what's funny is that there was still, for a brief moment in 92, there was still an affiliation again with the NWA, that if you were the WCW, there were a couple sets of champions that were the WCW and the NWA tag team champions. And it was so weird seeing that, because pretty much the entire relationship with NWA at that time was done. So, but the NWA tag team titles were still there. And the teams, like, off the top of my head, I'm saying Terry Gordy and Dr. Death.
Yes.
Were double tag team champions.
Yes. They unified them as it reads right here. Gordy and Williams, Dr. Death Steve Williams, that is, unifies the titles of 91, and that's, bringing them both together. You're right. They're carrying around 4 belts, right? And you can see that on the screen in front of you guys also.
And I think Dustin Rhodes and Ricky Steamboat were also had all 4. So there was a weird line that was kind of toed to where you had unified tag team champion, I guess, when the relationship absolved again or something, because it's so weird. Like I said, you can't really, like you mentioned, you can't really pinpoint where exactly the split was. But I want to say, just to give a rough number, probably around 93. By 93 for sure, I'm pretty sure.
Well, actually, that's exactly. Boy, I tell you, people, everybody out there listening who has their wrestling trivia, that's they used to call them. They still call them. I'm gonna call them right now because they don't call them that no more. The Wizard, nephew Corey. Okay, yeah, I forgot about your name. The individuals were pulled out. Well, I'm sorry, NWA pulled out their contracts with them in '93, and then that time that was Anderson and Paul Roma. Was weird to me. The Horseman. The worst Horseman ever had to be Paul Roma, for what it's worth, in my opinion. The worst 4 horsemen.
I think they think so too.
that was a corporate move. He had to look, allegedly. You know what I mean? So they wanted to give him that.
And
but
he did.
To this title though, Corey, and I'm looking at it and being belt collectors, being belt kings, and I'm gonna say this every single show, because every single show it matters, and every single show somebody asks me, what does it take? Yes, there's the bar, okay? Not the bar we go to during happy hour, but there's a bar that's set. This ain't the wall behind you. If you don't have 5 belts, you can't be a belt king. You could be a belt duke. You could be a belt prospect. Somebody said, well, if I got 1, what would that make me? Well, you couldn't even be a belt knight if you don't have 3, in my opinion. It's okay. I'm not the it's all of us. We're all here, okay? Yeah. But when I ask the totality of belt kings, how many belts? 5 is the minimum, Corey. But Corey will tell you something different.
Yeah, listen. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
We're not going to fine you today, but you already know the criteria. It's fine. Right, started. But with this belt, again, we did it last week, and I honestly like, Corey, talking about belts that I don't have. I didn't think I would. Like when coming up with the idea for the show, I wanted to be able to have that belt on camera, show people on camera. But I'm also cool with the fact I'm getting through belts I don't have, which makes me think about belts do I want or do I not want? And I look at this title, Corey, and it's very plain.
Yeah,
okay? It's a very plain title. It has the WCW logo on it. It has the globe on it, which stresses that it's the world champion. It actually has 3 globes on this entire belt. There's 5 plates, 6 plates total. A center plate says WCW on the banner. The championship, it looks like a bunch of gold, crushed over top of it. And then each plate,
the words tag team blended in it.
And then the words WCW, which is clearly, advertising who they are, is on every single plate. That's, to me, what makes this belt distinctive is the
Mhm.
WCW stamp on every single plate.
Mhm.
But overall, this is a belt that you get because you love the company and you love the people
Mhm.
that wore this title. Corey, you want to speak on the belt though in itself and give some people that maybe some of the more dimensions of this title for those who are not watching this on
Yeah.
YouTube but are listening to the podcast.
So this is one of the ones where it's very interesting because I like to call them phantom belts in the sense of you didn't really have too many replicas of these made.
Do you have this one? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, I don't.
Okay,
No,
okay.
I don't. And that's why I like talking about
And I
these,
do
like,
know Belt Kings that do have this one too, though, by the way.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what's funny. Like that's why when you mention, talking about belts that don't have it, I love that because it makes you look back at the belt and you got to research it because you don't have it. You don't have the luxury of just, oh, here it is. No, I like that. So this belt in particular, because there weren't too many, and I gotta think that I want to say I don't think replicas of these were made. I think you had to get anybody that owns one. I think you had to get accustomed to this because that belt doesn't really.
I think I can go back and maybe again we're talking about early here.
Mhm.
When
there may have been one.
I think a wrestling superstore. I can heavily recall.
And there may have been one. No, you're right.
Wrestling
It may
Superstore
have been
had one.
It may have been one. It may have because by the time replica belts were being made, this belt had already transitioned out of circulation on TV. That's why it was kind of hard. But either way, it's one of those phantom type, unicorn type belts that you don't really see. So when you see somebody with one, custom or not, you appreciate it because it's like you don't see that belt. And I always liked that one. I always thought it was funny because that's the belt that was always missing the side plate and they never replaced it. It was weird.
Yeah.
If you ever, there's a picture, I know for sure, there's a picture, I think, of the Outsiders with those belts. And Hall's holding the one that has the missing side plate. And it's so funny if you all want,
I actually think that's a picture that's on the screen right now. Is that picture of that belt with the missing side plate? And again, when I'm doing the editing for us and everything, and I'm looking at titles, I'm like, for those who can't hear me on radio, like I'm puzzled that where's the plate missing at? Like, why are the belts different? They constantly, Corey, we talked about that last week in other shows, switch versions of those belts, although it's the same belt in totality.
There's little intricacies that they may add, or if they do a reissue of the belt, there's something added that something else wasn't.
Do you think that was the wrestlers? And I'm asking, do you think the wrestlers, like we know with Savage, or I'm not Savage, sorry, bad choice of example, but Warrior wanting the different colors to go with his personality. Did wrestlers, did dictate whether they wanted to add or take away from belts? Were they doing
I think they had some, depending on who it was. I think even though in the wrestling business, belts are really realistically seen as expensive props. Because it always, to me, it seemed like the fans appreciated belts more than the actual company, as far as actual physical belts. I think some wrestlers, depending on who it was and creative, I think they had some say in that. I'm pretty sure, Michael's Warrior, Goldust when he had the gold one. I'm pretty sure there was a mix between them and creative that did that. You didn't see that you never saw that in WCW. Any kind of strap. They were always the traditionalists of companies. But what was weird, like I said, with that missing side plate was that I was like, they never fixed it. And I can only think of the reason why they never fixed it is because maybe they knew they had new belts coming. That's the only thing I can think of. But it remained that way for almost like 2 years before the new belts even came, that there was just a missing side plate. And I just thought it was weird because I was like, who wants to carry that one? But then once again, fans appreciate the physical belts more than the actual talent.
Yeah. And I want to give an apology to the creator of this belt. As we could not find for our listening audience out there who actually, if anybody who does know, as like I said, Jeremy Johns always says, comment below. Let us know.
And you know what?
Who made
Off
this
the
title?
top of my head, Mike, it could be, and I don't want to just, it could be like Midwest or something like that because there weren't but so many companies, and if I'm not mistaken, I think WWE, they pretty much had Reggie Parks at that time on lock or something. it's hard to figure out who the other, because the WWE ones were the only ones that were publicized was
Right.
actual. So, and I'm still gonna research. It was hard though.
And like I said, I know going back, it's just in my mind. You had that photographic memory that you can't escape. I remember the back of the magazines, and it's in WWE magazine, by the way, where they would advertise Wrestling Superstore, and maybe Pro Wrestling Illustrated as well. They would advertise the Wrestling Superstore. I know I saw the U.S. title there all the time. So I have this feeling I saw the tag team belt there. And I also know that a lot of indie shows I've gone to, I would see that belt between this tag team title and the cruiserweight title of WCW. I always saw being used as a title at said indie show that might be there. But again, we talking about this belt here. It got 5 plates, 4 smaller plates, the big center plate, roughly, I'm assuming 4 millimeter plates, because that's just the norm for these titles. But looking at this belt, it might have been thinner than the typical 4 millimeter plates. This belt was just not as thick. It was not as glorious as other titles. And that's weird, because WCW had some of the U.S. title, the big Goldie belt, my favorite title, TV title, were belts to me that stood out. But their U.S. tag and this tag and the later WCW tag that, like the Natural Born Thrillers you would say have, didn't have the craftsmanship, in my opinion. And that's why I gave my apologies to the designer. It felt like it was just, here you go, and that's what it was, Corey.
Well, it depends, because one, the illusion of TV, we never really can see the thickness of the plates unless you're there. So definitely pretty sure by the time those belts were being made, the standard was probably about 4 millimeters. We just couldn't tell based on TV. But I will say, that was the era where, the 80s pretty much was the era where they were moving away from like trophy makers and stuff, making belts, to actual belt makers designing and creating championships. Because if you notice a lot of the old belts, the old championships from the 70s, from the 80s, it looks like a trophy. They do. And
But I like that about them, though, too. By the way, take a gold brick from Fort Knox and just crush it. I'm cool with that. That's just me.
So those belts those were thinner plates, because those you could tell by the etching and the engraving, it looked like it came from a trophy shop.
Right.
But that's just where that's where the times were for wrestling
back in that time.
Yeah, but this belt, like I said, it was WCW made sure, like I said, they were the only ones in a sense of getting it right with big gold was the big gold. The U.S. Championship, in which there's 2 versions of that one too.
Yes, they are.
And me personally, I always liked the earlier one with the 4 plates, but whatever. We'll get into that.
But I also like the earlier tag team titles that was, NWA, not WCW belts. The ovalness of it.
Yeah.
The way that it looked. I mean, again, we're getting that too, but I love when we do things live, because live reactions come to you. I'm actually cool with having a title that is maybe not our favorite belt to talk about, but it might be, the fans'
somebody else's
favorite belt. And again, we're not putting it down as a belt collector. Would I get it? Absolutely. If I ran across a steal, the way that I'm learning from these belt emperors out here, Mo_Eden and my man, my keys are my fix on the Twitter. If I come across a deal of like $150 for that belt, I'm buying it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but for me, it's not my title, but the people that had it, Corey, that's a different story.
Yeah. Let's definitely get into that. Because this is a belt that I already have my Mount Rushmore. I'm just saying.
Well, clearly we have 2 of the 4 tag teams on there together, and that's the Steiner Brothers and Harlem Heat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now there is where you say, like Shrek, like the ogre that he is, this championship division in 91 to 97, which is a small window. You got to peel back the layers of who actually was and what they did. I'm going to eliminate and guess another one for you. Maybe I'm wrong. Hollywood Blondes.
Yep.
Okay.
Right on the button.
Okay.
That was the 3rd one.
Okay.
And like we always say, this it gets hard.
Okay.
That fourth one, you could put a myriad of teams in there. You could. But go ahead, you can guess.
I'm not sure if I would say the Hollywood Blondes. I just threw them out there. But
No, that's that. They're
I'm
absolutely.
lying. They're one of my favorite tag teams of all time.
Yeah, that's absolutely the top three. Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, their run was so good
So good.
as tag champions.
Again,
like that's the one.
Honorable mention to Doom, because dang it, I thought they had the belts and
Fair enough.
they were WCW tag champions, but they didn't have this said belt.
Mhm.
They had, now I see it, Corey. They did have the
Yep.
oval ones. I see it now.
Yep.
So shout out to Doom. Man, and I'm just gonna give you guys some names. All right. So when this belt became official for WCW being tag team titles, is where we still not sure if it was either the Steiner brothers or the Enforcers. The Enforcers was a tag team by Arn Anderson, one of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time, and Larry Zbyszko, and was managed, Corey, by two different managers. Michael P.S. Hayes of the Freebirds, which shocked everybody in the wrestling business, being the Freebirds history, going with the Horseman history. And then you had them by a young, I call him, always have been, where he got his gimmick from, Jerry Arcadian from The Last Dragon, also known as Paulie Dangerously, is where, you know, the gimmick are the Enforcers. Then you have Ricky Steamboat and Dustin Rhodes, when they were trying to get Dustin over so much.
And that's the thing. Dustin's some of his best years were those early 90s, man. That you honestly thought
the natural.
Yeah, you thought he was going to be world champion. You really did, because he was that good and they were pushing him that much. And you know what's funny? I have a team, but if there was ever a time that you could be like, okay, the Mount Rushmore, as far as tag teams, wouldn't necessarily have a tag team individual, that's where it could be, because you have three teams. I'll put this
first thing in my mind was Beautiful Bobby Eaton.
see, a lot of his were
favorites though.
Right, a lot of his were NWAs.
Yeah,
like,
they were. They were.
As far as WCW ones, off the top, you already mentioned one, Anderson, Ricky Steamboat, Dustin Rhodes. Those are if you said somebody individually, they were the ones I would say off the top of my head, if you had to amend it being a team. And because Anderson had it, if I want to say with Eaton, with Zbyszko, and then maybe the other one in there too that he had as far as like that particular tag team title. So, but I have a team.
Yeah, I was going to say it for you. It's got to be the Nasty Boys.
It is. It is.
Some, I'm gonna go back. Let's take 3 steps back, not 2.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
It's not that hard to name the 4. I mean, we can disagree to agree, and that's wrestling. And I don't expect you guys to agree with us listening. But when I look at it, at the totality of most reigns, most time having it, the rivals they went against, I think that's forgotten when you're looking at goats of or Mount Rushmores of said titles. So they fought. They, aka their dance partner. And then it's Nasty Boys, Harlem Heat, Steiner Brothers, and the Hollywood Blondes is a very hard for to beat, Corey, as a Mount Rushmore.
And make sure we specify this for the people listening, whether it's first timers or our current loyalists. Remember, we're talking about the design of the belt, because it gets confused a lot sometimes when we talk about it on different platforms with people, that people are just, remember, we're always talking about or incorporating the design of the championship. To make sure that we're talking about of this specific championship belt. These are the people we feel are the greatest ones with that particular design of that championship belt.
No, I'm glad you pointed that back out, because we get that. We get the this is, we're not talking about the greatest WCW champions of all time, which Harlem Heat still is. Okay. But the Hollywood Blondes wouldn't fall in that case because they broke up, they split up, they went their separate ways to become huge stars in other promotions. The Nasty Boys were probably bigger in WWE. I don't even know. I wouldn't even go that route, because I think flip a coin, to be honest. Now that I think about it, but And again, let's go through this list. Great champions. You know, I looked at this list and I forgot, albeit short of a run it was between May and July, Cactus Jack and
Kevin Sullivan. Yeah,
they were whooping people's butt before I knew what hardcore wrestling was.
Yeah, and that was sort of a makeshift team in the sense of, because I think Max Payne was supposed to be in that original slot with Cactus Jack, and he got hurt.
Max Payne.
He put Kevin Sullivan in there. And I want to say that was 94 they did that. And they maybe it was either Spring Stampede or Slamboree. I mean, probably Stampede.
For when they won the titles?
Yeah, because that was in Philly.
They won it in Philly, but for some reason, as I'm on this database that I found for belts, they don't have the pay-per-view for every one of them. Or notable, you know.
I think that was, I'm pretty sure
it definitely was Philly.
I think that was the first Spring Stampede, man. I really do. I really think that was the first.
At this time, I'm graduating high school a month later, less than a month later. I couldn't tell you in '94 what was going on.
It was Slamboree. I'm sorry, it was Slamboree.
Okay,
it was 394 in Philly,
and then they lost them to a team that, until we looked this up, I'm not gonna lie to you, I totally forgot about.
Oh, Pretty Wonderful.
God darn it, that name was great. That is a great. That might be one of my favorite. I can't say one of the best, but one of my favorite tag team names, yo. Pretty Wonderful.
Like, they were good, and they were a good team too.
Paul Orndorff and Paul Roma, the Pauls, if you will.
Paula is what the fans would cheer at them. Paula.
Yeah.
They cheer Paula at both, you know, as their jeers.
Yeah.
But somebody else, just as we're talking, which I love how we're talking, because it gets my brain moving and I'm reminiscing. Somebody else that you could say, if you ever had, as far as individual in a tag team, as far as more, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, man.
Oh, you know what? Hold on. I put my cantaloupe down. You know what? Go ahead. I eat this cantaloupe while you finish that statement.
Yeah, because he had a couple of different partners, and albeit short reigns, it seemed like they always had the faith in him to at least put him with an established veteran and put the tag team belts on them. And it could always work. I mean, I want to say...
Well, that's when wrestling was... And I think people forget what makes stars. Okay? Not what makes professional wrestlers. What makes wrestling stars. And I apologize for my phone going off.
That's all right.
He clearly had a look that Marcus Bagwell. You know, in this time, the late 80s, early 90s, he's clean cut. He's a former Chippendale dancer. You know, so you knew already the ladies were attracted to him. And my wife always, and I'm letting you guys in on a little male versus female kind of thing. And people get mad when I say things like this. My wife can look at guys and be like, well, he won't ever be champion. I'm like, why? She'd be like, well, he's not cute.
I'm like, but you know what though? She's on to something, because they look at stuff like that. Yeah. But it's either, as you know, as it always was floated around, you're either aesthetically pleasing, right, or you have just a character that's undeniable.
Undeniable, right?
You can't build around. I mean, not build around it. I mean, so.
But when you think of Bagwell though, and you brought up Stars and Stripes. You haven't brought them. I'm sorry, you brought up individual. I apologize. You brought up, but he was Marcus Bagwell and Stars and Stripes, and one of my favorite groups. I was proud and honored in every way when I united after what I think was 10 years, 15 years. I brought the American males back together on Perfect Plex Talk Radio. I had Marcus Bagwell, friend of the program, them join the show and talk about how great in that time of, you know, Bagwell and Scotty Riggs, you know, was. Scotty Riggs would thank me so much, like, yo, thank you for that interview, because it got him bookings again, you know, in the later years. And wrestlers, when they deteriorate in age or companies phase them out, they depend on fans to remember them and fans to appreciate them. And so I've always been real close to Scotty Riggs, and I want to, you know, appreciate them for coming on. It made Bleacher Report. It made Forbes Magazine, bringing the American males back together again. And I remember I would tell people like, I just fished for an interview, and that that
Yeah.
stuck. But back to Marcus Bagwell, I believe he's a
Don't forget Too Cold Scorpio.
Oh, tell you why I'm mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why I'm mad, because as I was getting pictures, I didn't get that. I didn't get one with Bagwell and Scorpio. And going back to that tag team, they were good.
Managed, and they were managed by Teddy Long too.
Yeah,
that was a very underrated. Unfortunately, they were just lost in the shuffle of there being good teams with them in '93 because pretty much they had to be there while Harlem Heat was there, Nasties, returning Steiners coming up, not yet, but the Steiners will eventually be returning. It's a lot that they had
those belts in 20 days.
Yeah,
that's whack.
Yeah.
That's whack.
I mean, there's a lot of runs that happened like that in the early '90s.
Yeah.
That these couple of weak runs, and then it was over, and then they just moved on to other stuff. But that was a team. If there was ever and I think part of that, I think Too Cold was on his way out too.
To back to ECW, going to ECW at that time.
I think
Flash
Too Cold was on his way out.
And excuse me, wrestling fans and traditionalists in my timeline. Was he Flash Funk first? No, he went to he didn't go to ECW first. Okay.
That Flash Funk is entirely a WWF.
Right, but he went to WCW. I mean, he went to ECW first, and then they picked him up. Is what I was trying to get my timeline.
That was he went WCW, ECW, WWF.
Okay, and then back to ECW after that. And mention what you were saying about the early '90s and the tag team titles. And I'm looking through this. They did that because and looking in the interest of Stars and Stripes, right? And they were rivalries with Paul Roma and Pretty Wonderful. So they lost, they won. They lost, they won. They lost, they won. Kind of like going back 10 years earlier or 8 years earlier, you would have the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express just always flip-flop the titles in that sense. During that time, when this was going on, Corey, and you're a younger guy than I am, was that fun to watching their titles between those four guys go back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, because it was because they still had your established teams, but you never knew when some kind of just up and coming team, they just slip them in there, boom, tag title run. Like, whoa, like how did that happen? Like I said, pretty much your Marcus Alexander, Bagwell, Too Cold Scorpio runs, your Stars and Stripes runs, your Ricky Steamboat, Shane Douglas runs that you just threw in there, which one of the underrated as far as this belt underrated feud is Ricky Steamboat, Shane Douglas, and the Hollywood Blondes. They put on amazing matches for months for the tag team titles, and that's part of the reason why I got Hollywood Blondes up there is because, granted, their tag title run was long enough. I mean, they had an established run, but they had good matches with quality teams and even makeshift teams. And the Hollywood Blondes their last run, the full team never truly lost the belts. Because whatchamacallit, I do believe Brian Pillman was the one that was hurt with the ankle.
Yes. Yep. That's where his career started. Go down. Right.
They subbed in William Regal and they lost him to the Horsemen.
Yep.
As champions.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry. No.
I just remember that.
As you're talking, it's going through my mind, and I always love playing Jesus Advocate. Right. I never say that was Jesus Advocate. Where do the outsiders fit? Because
that's why I didn't put them in. Because here's why I didn't put them in. Because you knew.
Oh, we know now.
Yeah, I mean now their runs pretty much at this point was purely for the sake of the storyline of the NWO.
But are we further hampered them by that because of that? I mean,
and that's not their fault. And just for those belts, because they weren't defending them to where they weren't being a legitimate tag team that they were. I mean, they were defending them. They were.
Yeah.
But they weren't out there consistently as a tag. They were out there with the NWO. They had tag matches on pay-per-views or every once in a while because they were the champions.
Right.
But as far as they were two. That was the early era of it, that you were seeing two single being put together as tag champions. And those runs, always the traditional teams to me are the ones that
You want to count?
or merit. Yeah, I mean, even Sting and Luger, as good as
I
they
was going to mention them. Yeah.
like, I'm not. Sting and Luger are top 5 W's of all time.
I would say they might actually be the biggest tag team in that history,
yeah,
but they wasn't a tag team.
right, exactly. They were two friends that every once in a while they got together and tag team.
Yeah, for a cause. For
Yeah.
a cause. Take the Horsemen on. Take down the Outsiders.
Right.
Take down whatever faction was coming against
Mhm.
the sanctity
And it was
of
so, you know
WCW.
what? You know what's funny? You made me think about this too. When Luger and Sting were tag champions, it was weird because that was an interesting story. Like, because there were 3 and 4 different pieces. Because Luger was part of Dungeon of Doom, who was a heel faction.
Mm-hmm.
He was best friends with Sting. Sting teamed with him. Luger was television and TV and tag champion at the same time. And you kind of had these things, but Sting was friends with Hogan and Savage, but they were feuding against Dungeon of Doom. It was like, can you trust Luger? Can you not trust him? There was enough going on that WCW had some gem storylines that just, always kind of fell under the radar. So
I like that history lesson, man. I do. Again, why I love this show, which you can find on Spotify, iHeartRadio. You have a podcast, whatever network it is you listen to, we are there. Just Google Belt Kings. That's with an S, because we're more than just the two of us. But
yes.
I love how you put that, because I literally was going to say Lex Luger and Sting. And then they don't have the runs to be up there. And I still, just because I feel like I want to say a little bit longer about the Outsiders, because there's people that want to tell us, well,
people are going to put them there.
Right.
But if you think about it, those runs that they had, were they really having big feuds with these like specifically centered around the tag titles, or was it centered around them being in the NWO? And it's the latter. They were centered around them being in the NWO and them taking over WCW, so we're taking all the belts. But realistically, there was never a focus on the belt.
That's what made it so great when Harlem Heat beat them.
Mm-hmm.
When the Steiners beat them, because it was like, they're a real tag team. You're just a company that's beating everybody up, dominating the numbers game, as they say, in the words of Gorilla Monsoon, doing a Pearl Harbor job on somebody, and you're there. And when we loved them coming in, so you automatically loved them because we knew Razor and Diesel. And then we see them together, like, whoa, okay, you like them. I'm a fan of them, clearly. But like you said, I'm loving how you break it down. He wasn't really a tag team. So if you want to put them there in your list, hey, that's fine. And we're not going to argue that. I'm just going to respectably disagree about them being a Mount Rushmore of tag teams, despite, launching the Steiner brothers. And despite launching even more importantly, Harlem Heat in that situation. And then because of the Outsiders, because of the NWO, is what turned Sting from Sting and Luger into the Sting that probably the biggest Sting of some of you guys' lifetime. Mine would always still be the California Blonde Sting. That's just me. That's my favorite Sting.
Me too.
I never got the usage of the Crow one. I loved it, don't get me wrong, but I knew it was a spinoff of the Crow. So for me, it was like, but that's your Sting. That's your Sting. I love the guy that was the bright, ow! I love that guy that from Venice Beach, California, Sting. And that Sting was glorious. I have to say that, Corey. But again, let's talk about the Mount Rushmore. Let's talk about those 4 tag teams. Okay. Starting with Harlem Heat. To me, the greatest tag team of WCW and NWA combined. Because again, as an older gentleman, I always thought it was one federation, although I knew one bought the other one out. To me, they're the greatest tag team in WCW history. And I don't think it's even a question that, and I'm not saying they were the best in the ring, because to me, the best, and people talk about all the time, what's my favorite tag team? It's Harlem's not on my list. Again, as a wrestling fan, I love the faces and I hated the heels. Okay? And the culture would tell me, well, come on, man, they were black. Didn't care. Didn't even notice they were black, to be honest, if that makes any sense at all. Okay,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, they were black, but they were, to me, I didn't like the way they talked. I didn't like Colonel Parker. I wasn't a fan of Sensational Sherry's anymore. As a wrestling fan, they didn't do it for me, despite me as an adult fan going, they were really good. Hell, I hated Mike Tyson growing up as a kid. I respect him now as an adult, but as a kid, I was a Holyfield fan. You know what I mean? So that's what I wanted. But looking at it, doing our research, being the intelligent wrestling show and wrestling fans, most importantly, that we are, it's got to be Harlem Heat's the greatest tag team of all time in WCW history for it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you got to split that because I do think the NWA
a split.
I'm talking about as far as NWA, WCW. There's got to be enough. There's enough there that there's an argument for the greatest NWA tag team. There's an argument for the greatest WCW. The greatest WCW one is close. It's close between Harlem Heat and the Spikers.
Absolutely.
It is. But I think as far
if you go like Jericho and go most runs, then it's Harlem Heat.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm still.
I was trying to.
I really want to give Harlem Heat them, but the Steiners, even though they were gone for a year and came back, and that's when Harlem Heat really inserted their dominance. Was that year the Steiners were gone in '93/early '94.
Before it's all said and done, they were 10 times WCW champions. Not this belt in which we're talking about between 91 and 97, but between 91 and 97, they were.
I want to say what, 6 times?
I'm going back. I know that it was 7.
I think it might have been 7.
My last
might have been 7. But nonetheless,
97. It was 5. It's 5 for the. I just had it right here in front of my face. 5 for the Steiner brothers, during this time, and Harlem Heat 6 in between that time zone.
Yeah, it's close, and I love the Steiners, but I think I do have to give it to Harlem Heat. I'm talking about like hair on teeth close.
Yeah, it's like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. It's 1 and 1A.
It's the true definition of 1 and 1A. Yeah, between those two, but I gotta give it. I think I gotta give it to Harlem Heat. I do. I think I do. It's close.
I'm more of a fan of the Steiner brothers because
that's what I was gonna say. I'm more of a fan
I'm
of
not
the Steiners
necessarily
too.
a big Papa Pump fan per se, but I was a huge Scott Steiner fan because I was a huge Dog-Faced Gremlin fan coming from UWF. You might remember that federation. To me, a lot of the stars you see really came from UWF. Not that's where they came from. And Rick Steiner, the Dog-Faced Gremlin, was that guy coming to the ring with the wrestling gear on. Before there was a Kurt Angle, before we knew about as pro wrestling fans, they were the guys you seen come like, they were in college, they were collegiate athletes, and I know you had the varsity club out there, but Rotunda, when the varsity club got into wrestling, he was like, you looked at wrestling differently, and the Steiner brothers was a perfect pro wrestling fans and Grummel wrestling mix fans to me. The man did a Frankenstein off the top rope before anybody was ever jumping off the top ropes in Scott Steiner. So for me, my favorite is the Steiner brothers, but I gotta say that I give Harlem Heat a little bit of a notch above them. And that then Harlem Heat. But back to Harlem Heat, being from Brooklyn, or I'm sorry, Harlem, duh. What the heck I just say Brooklyn for? Brooklyn. Right, you look at me like I was crazy. Rest in peace, Shad Gaspar. But you're looking at Harlem Heat, their name says it in the name, and what they did from Colonel Parker to Sensational Sherry to just fighting the Steiner brothers, fighting these famous tag teams that came against them. Also, Public Enemy, the Nasty Boys. They went back and forth, and they were brutal matches. And you start to see, that guy Booker T is pretty good. I remember the first time watching before it was ever called a spinneroonie. I was like, this dude just do a windmill in the ring? Like that was uncommon back then, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the another team that's kind of in there, they weren't necessarily tag champions a lot, but gotta mention them just for that mid-90s kind of feuds that they were having.
Public Enemy.
I
knew it was coming.
Yeah, because they had those fun matches with the Nasties, with Harlem Heat. Like they just had those fun matches. They brought
trash cans to the ring.
Yeah,
that was cool. Okay,
Yeah.
coming over from ECW, you saw that and you were like, and again, I wasn't the biggest ECW fan, so
Yeah.
I seen them and was like, all right, this is kind of crazy. Like, what are they doing? You know what I mean? And to get off the subject, but back on the subject, I mean, they would have fights with like Cactus Jack and Public Enemy and these guys and Kelly. So these were some of the most brutal matches for this time period. Okay,
Right.
whenever you seen the Nasty Boys and Public Enemy, they were very, very hard hitting matches,
Right.
Corey. When you put Public Enemy up there, was it this? This stood out for you?
Yeah.
The hip hop parade is what they were doing. It's what they were doing. But yeah, great honorable mention to those guys right there. What about guys that aren't talked about? Who would come to mind for you about guys that we haven't brought on this list? And literally the only reason I came up with this is as I was scrolling, I saw this name was like, oh snap, I forgot about these guys.
I want to say, Now I'm thinking,
I say this when they beat Harlem Heat for the belts.
was it the Blue Bloods?
Would that be Dick Slater and Bunkhouse?
No. That was no. I was talking about Bobby Eaton and Dave Taylor, or Regal.
Oh, that was a great tag team. The Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
Oh, again.
Yeah, I know, right?
Beautiful Bobby Eaton again. You know, I'm
exactly.
sorry.
So no, Earl Robert of Eaton. That's who. In the
Yes.
With knowledge that you just
that's what he was. He wasn't Beautiful Bobby no more. He was the Earl. Lord Stephen Regal came through and gave him a education and decorum, if you will.
But yeah, Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick Slater. Yeah, that was an intermediate run where the storyline with that was kind of the history with Harlem Heat and Colonel Rob Parker. Left them by then, and he was, it was weird because that's when they had Sherry intertwined with that too, and then Sherry and Colonel Parker were supposed to get married and all. Like, it was so weird. It was so weird, but you had to love that about WCW back then. But no, they're a team that you probably would forget that they were even tag champions.
Yeah,
like
you really would. So, so if you could pick out of this, and then we get into some matches. Would they have been the worst tag team? We always talk about the best. Would Dick Slater and Bunkhouse Buck, for heaven's sakes, be considered the worst tag team in this era?
Sadly, and like I said on previous shows, we only say the worst because it's just no other way to put it.
Right.
It's them, maybe Bagwell and Scorpio. Look at the run.
Yeah.
Stars and Stripes. You don't know.
I like Stars and Stripes, and they had multiple title runs.
Yes, but look at the totality of it.
But again, in the wake of what's going on in this country, I still was a Patriot fan.
Yeah,
it was something about the mask and watching the vein. Like, you knew he was on steroids, but he's like, you saw the veins coming out of his neck. You're like, this dude is intense. You know what I mean? It was somebody's clothesline for me with the Patriot. We all have our quirky things we like about certain guys in wrestling.
Right.
His clothesline to me stood out, not like a Russian sickle. Okay. I can't wait to talk about those titles because to me, Nikita Koloff is the most underrated performer in wrestling history. People don't give that man no credit with Nikita Koloff. He single-handedly took down the Four Horsemen by himself. But, pick one, name one. It don't really matter. That's what was actually going on at this time. But some of your favorite matches for this title, Corey, what would you say?
For the tag titles, definitely I would have to say probably definitely the Broad Street the Philly Street Fight with Nasty Boys and Cactus Jack and Kevin. Another one is I want to actually Nasty Boys and Harlem Heat from Slamboree '95 was also a really good one when the Nasties beat Harlem Heat for the tag titles.
Okay.
So that one's another one. Actually Harlem Heat against the Outsiders when the Outsiders won. Another good one where
that was a really good match.
Yeah, it was.
That was a really good match, and it honestly, I won't say it shocked people, but it kind of did. if you remember that.
No, because Harlem Heat was up there. No.
Yeah.
It definitely was a shocker because as good as the Outsiders were, and you knew the Outsiders were Hall and Nash, like you. But in the, a part of you was like, it's still Harlem Heat though. This ain't gonna be no cakewalk.
No.
I mean, you look back at it in hindsight, where the storylines were going, you knew Hall and Nash were going to get them. But at that time, Harlem Heat was still like the cream of the crop tag team that it was like, okay, they gonna have to really beat these dudes because they ain't gonna be just laying down for them. So,
and this is when a lot of the Clash of Champion type. And you had at this time, you could turn on WCW Saturday night, okay, on TBS 7:05 start time, unless baseball was playing. You get really pissed off and you would turn on wrestling and all of a sudden Atlanta Braves. That's actually how I became an Atlanta Braves supporter. Is that I wanted to go watch wrestling and wrestling wasn't on. It was and the Atlanta Braves. But those matches at that time, man, and we're speaking about, at this point some of our best matches. That I do remember that match when Luger and Sting won those titles.
Yep.
I remember that match, man, and Sting. I remember that crowd popping so loud, and for them because it was just a different time. When that happened, it was just different. Back then, when you won the belts off of certain tag teams that the crowd hated, the crowd didn't really hate the NWO. We can sit here and say that they did. I gotta remember, without social media, it might have been a even split.
They were not hated later. In the beginning, they were hated.
So that was real trash. They were stoned.
Up until I would say up until from Bash the Beach '96 through maybe some type of maybe mid '97.
Was it were they going to be loved as black and white at that time, or they had became
they were no. They started to be loved, but when you had that, honestly, the dynamic of Macho Man being in the NWO made it.
Yeah.
Because
it's shoving down our throats that fans hate today that they always never want. I always tell fans, just me personally, it's a little personal break, and I apologize. Little Mike Knoxxx. I hate when wrestling fans say, "Oh my God, they're shoving them down our throat." You can't name me one champion in history that the company wanted to be their champion. They didn't shove down your throat.
Yeah,
I don't care what you say.
Make them champion.
I don't care what you say. Oh, yeah, people who hated Daniel Bryan for what? You know what I'm saying? But you love CM Punk. CM Punk wasn't shoved down our throats. You know what I'm saying? So the NWO was shoved down your throat so much.
Oh yeah,
you had to go. For me, it was like, as a wrestling fan, but as a WWE guy, I've been named. You've been named that as well. I tell people all the time, no, I love wrestling, but yeah, I guess I could say they were my favorites. Although Dusty Rhodes is above almost everybody in WWE. But watching, not knowing, back then we didn't have social media, who they were, the big guy will be here next week. You know what I mean? It was important to me. Like, they're fighting with each other. They're feuding with each other. We didn't know back then. If you had today, the NWO could have never worked today because it leaked. It all leaked out. And no leakage gave us great tag team wrestling. Gave us great title runs. It made stars. Okay, what would have Stevie Ray been without the NWO outside of Hardy? Because there's always, unfortunately, that tag team that people they dub one better than the other. I hate to use the terminology. There's Sean and then there's Jannetty. That's what they use, right? So every tag team has a Jannetty. Every tag team has a Sean, right? You look at the Hart Foundation, man. He rested in peace, and Jimmy on the Divine, who I thought was golden, but for some other reason, Brett was the bigger star. When you looked at Harlem Heat, Booker T just did things differently than Stevie Ray. Although I like Stevie Ray's jaw jacking more. Yeah. Because he's a bigger dude. I kind of believe like they got gaps in their teeth. They got the bell pepper nose. They was ready to whoop somebody's ass for it. And they scared
honestly, Stevie Ray was the one you were scared of. I mean, Booker was in his own right. Like, yeah, that dude can go. Right. Stevie was the dude you looked at like, he might really whoop somebody for real. And then Yeah, he just talked it. I mean, both of them talked just the black trash. Like they were just they talk trash. But Stevie almost looked like he was shooting. You know, wrestling. It was like, nah, I think he really might try to wrestle somebody.
And that's what's great about wrestling too, is that you want to have that guy you're kind of scared of. You know what I mean? Again, if I had to make his name up every week, I will. Sammy Guevara doesn't scare me. Right? So when I see Sammy Guevara, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. When I see Stevie Ray,
Michael McKay.
you know what I'm saying? And I'm a big dude, and I still would probably be like,
Y'all do not clean that room.
like,
I will personally make sure you have the hardest time of your life ever sitting back now.
so I'm saying, I think we're in agreement.
I've had 3 days now that room to clean. Nobody clean shit. Now y'all here taking clothes off the hangers, leaving hangers on the floor. Hangers supposed to be money. Y'all break them all the time. Come clean your room.
Only team to me you can't even come close to inserting is the outside.
Yeah, but
There is no other. In this round, people hear us out again. Corey gave a disclaimer. Corey, you want to get that disclaimer about?
Yeah,
So,
so just remember, we are talking about the actual physical design of the championship belt, of the holders of that particular belt, who are the greatest ones. Not the WCW Tag Champions as a whole, but this physical design of this championship belt. I was so chilling, and it's all right.
It's really good.
That's
I knew that
ultimately
this
what
morning.
it is.
I knew this morning. So that's the Mount Rushmore. That's what I'm going with. Favorite matches, I think for me, again, I would say when Harlem Heat actually beat the Outsiders back for the titles. I think it was the second time around. Because I got it right there. Sometimes I can bring it up cheating. But yeah, it's when the Harlem Heat had it, and then the Outsiders took it from them. And then the Steiner brothers got it. Outsiders got it back. Again, Outsiders had it back. I'm switching titles at this point, but I guess that's my mistake. And again, that's why we do this during that time. So I'm thinking about a different kind of match. But definitely Harlem Heat and the Steiner brothers back and forth in '96 was just phenomenal. We're talking about a 3-day span here between Dayton, Ohio, and Cincinnati, Ohio. And hell, you might as well went to Cleveland, Ohio, because hell, who wants to go to Cleveland for vacation? Nobody I ever knew said, I'm going to Cleveland for vacation. Shout out to Joe Kim Noah. But in all seriously, a shout out to my man Chris Platt, who's from Cleveland, who always says Dana Brooks, Cleveland's own. Okay, who wants to shout out? Who wants to shout out Cleveland, Ohio? But Harlem Heat, man, they made this set title. Where's Mike Knoxxx want to go out there and probably purchase at this point, Corey? Just because these two guys, being the belt collectors that we are, wanting belts for their meaning. Again, people, I told you guys last week when we did part 2 during the Continental Championship, I had no desire ever to get that belt. If it comes available, I might have to jump on it because of talking about the lineage of that title. Speaking about this time between 91 and 96, the fact that Harlem Heat and the Steiner brothers alone had this belt, and that the Hollywood Blondes had this belt, it makes me want it, Corey. You get your belt signed. I get my belt signed. Certain belts, like my Man on a Man Championship, which is not displayed on my wall. Ward, he signed it. You know, my man Ward, he signed it. Stone Cold Steve Austin Ward, he signed it. We got, I think, one other person to go through, and that's Ted DiBiase Jr., if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
And then once he has it and he signs it, that belt will never come out the closet. Okay, and I think you get certain belts because of the guys you love wearing them, having them. Okay, and what they meant to you during that belt time. And in '91 and '96, I can say it was like a great area for me because I'm fresh out of high school. Okay, that's my high school years between '90 and '94. You know what I mean? And this belt was prevalent between '91 and '97. So that was all that we, coming out of high school, my adult life. I remember those, I'm a high school kid. I was in the house. I'm in the south side of Chicago. I'm like, you ain't going outside, boy. You better watch that wrestling you like so much on the TV. You better sit down and watch wrestling. And there was Harlem Heat every single Saturday on WCW Saturday night. There was the Steiner brothers. It was just a bit, again, just because I was tag team wrestling. So with tag team wrestling being my backdrop, this was very important to me to have those champions, and now it makes me want to have this title. Corey, what about you?
Oh yeah, definitely. If I can ever come across one, it's definitely one. Yeah, absolutely.
So here we are, 5 shows down. We have had 5 Mount Rushmores of said titles. We've agreed totally on 2 of them.
Yeah,
only 2. We didn't agree on the Mount Rushmore.
20%.
Yeah, I was a Major League Baseball player, I'll be a Hall of Famer 40%. Just saying.
Yeah, you sure would.
Just saying.
That's a 400 average.
It's a
Yeah.
400 average. I'm a Hall of Famer, baby. With that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and get up out of here for today's show. A lot of tension is going on in the country and in the world. So, again, we want to tell you guys, take a little break away from it if you can. Tell a friend to tell a friend, hey, Belt Kings is here, baby. And we have a radio show called Champions, dedicated to the belts that we all love. When I come across other belt collectors, my mouth sometimes drops. And the amount of, like, how popular and how big collecting titles have become. It just shows you, again, how strong the wrestling community really is, where people will call us crazy for doing certain things that we will always just do. Waiting on my other one to come in the mail, but I do have this right here. I told you I was getting it. This is, to me, Corey, probably my best possession. For those who don't know, listen to the radio, I got myself a Slammy Award. Got my second one coming. And I love this thing, man. I haven't taken it. I haven't put it back in the box. Comes in a nice little box case. I got a little video about it on Belt Kings Instagram page. That's Belt Kings on Instagram and Twitter. And I absolutely love the thing. The nice weight to it. It's as heavy as my belts are. And my wife was making fun of me talking when we go to LA, and I told them what my plans are going to be in LA. She says, "Oh, you're going to get heavy with it. You're going to want to carry it." I said, "That's why I'm taking my kids. When it gets heavy, you hold this." I said, "The first time Christian drops that thing, you're going to yell at him." I said, "Point." I guess I got to carry my own 2 Slammy Awards with me all day. If somebody drops this, to see, dropping the belts in Miami on the ground is one thing. Dropping this in the shoes of LA is another. And I'm not doing that. So, I love my Slammy Award. Next week, we'll be back for episode 6. What kind of week are we going to talk about, Corey? We don't know.
We don't know.
No, you don't know.
We don't know.
Any final words, Corey, before we get up out of here, my brother?
All right, man.
Now, any final words before we leave?
You know what? I think next week, I think we're gonna have a belt. Some things in my head.
Okay.
We're gonna have something that people are gonna want. So.
Okay. Well, and with that being said, guys, I will say this, and again, the thoughts and opinions of Mike Knoxxx is of Mike Knoxxx, not Belt Kings, not 1340 AM Fox Sports, solely Mike Knoxxx. Yes, people, all lives matter. That's never a question. I don't even think it's something somebody can even to think about it not mattering. That's stupid to think all lives don't matter. But what's going on right now, and as a black man in America, I'm a wrestling fan second. I'm a black man first. Black lives matter. And when the country starts recognizing that not just all lives matter, but black lives matter also, then we could be a better place. Our respects, I can say this totally, go out to the Floyd family and their loss, and I hope that they do get justice for the injustice that has been done. But again, guys, this isn't a political show. I just felt the need to get it out because I have this platform. So I thank you for respecting my opinion as much as I respect yours. Corey, they can find you where? Because I know you always say I mess it up.
My kicks are my fix.
And listen, I was so mad you caught me messing that up on the video. And when I said, that's what happens when you've been drinking. I was like, and then you called me out on it and said, you can't get my handle right. And I knew it. I said, man, I couldn't even edit it. But I was like, maybe I said it right and someone else caught it. But yeah, my kicks are my picks on Twitter and Instagram. Mike Knoxxx on Twitch or Twitter and Instagram. And again, Belt Kings out here. Listen, Mo Eaton, Rodney, the whole DMV wrestling group on Facebook. A bunch of Belt Kings in there. Jackie Moon and those guys. Listen, get 5 belts and you a king. Get once and Corey might recognize you as a king. But with that being said, guys, we out of here. We'll see you next week, y'all. Fingers.
The champ is here!